Wow, did you guys see the GoFundMe just tried to steal $9 million? And I'm just blown away at the way even the fundraising, the so-called organizations that are supposed to do good for people, right? Even they're complete thieves. They think that they're the government now too. Now, we've known for years that GoFundMe is shysters. They're scammers. And they're constantly shutting down fundraisers and things like that if it's for somebody's legal defense, right? So much for presumed innocence. If it's for something that doesn't lean with the political views of GoFundMe, etc., right? But in the past, it was like, well, yeah, they canceled the fundraiser and refunded the money. And we've learned over the years that you don't do fundraisers with GoFundMe because they're crooks. And this time, it even gets worse. But I've just been thinking about all this and how we truly are in a media dark ages. And think about this for a minute, because I know we have devices like the one I'm holding and people are going to laugh, media dark ages, but think about the level of control in your social media, in networks like you're watching this on right now, right? I just had a video removed recently for not saying the right things about the things. And if you go to YouTube and you look at their rules for what you're allowed to say regarding the current situation of events, and you've noticed me being very careful in my words, because we do live, and I've recognized that we live in a media dark ages. And everybody's mindset is faction against faction. These companies are getting away with this because if it's whoopee on the left, the right is like, yeah, shut her down. She shouldn't be talking. We don't want to hear her. And like Reagan, right? They're like, the left is like, yeah, shut him down. He shouldn't be allowed to speak. So we're all seeking to violate the voices of others, which really is just violating the voices of ourselves. And what's happening is we have these politicians that are just whoring themselves out to corporate interests, like Trudeau, like Biden, whoring themselves out to fascism and power and control, and like Trump was doing, right? And it was different. I know it's like, okay, one side of the faction does their fascism a little bit different, and we say, oh no, we like this guy because he's our kind of fascism. Well, I don't like any kind of fascism. I think people's rights to their life, their liberty and property, I think it's important we defend those. That's how we stand up. It's how we love our neighbor as ourselves. And the problem is they just keep us dividing. We've become so ignorant in this media dark ages that even if you want to find the truth about something that's happening right now, it's very difficult to do so because the search engines are compromised. They control what you see, the social media networks, the video networks, all of these things that were supposed to give every man a voice. In the end, the corporation still ended up with the voice. And do we still have more technology than we did to get it out? Yes. Than we did 200 years ago? Yes, there's ways. But this is still the level of censorship we've seen in the past 2 years. And you have to understand that this is nothing new. Remember the war on terror and how they used that? And those of us who didn't buy into it, who didn't believe in the invasion that was actually bombing schools and killing children and murdering fathers, in reality, it was for power and for oil and for money. If you live in the US, you remember that, maybe even if you don't, because it's really still going on. It's just tapered down and they've redirected that narrative. You got to realize that the tactics are exactly the same. It hasn't changed. So when they're going out and they're saying, oh, we have to stop the war on terror. Oh, we have to stop this. Oh, we have to stop that. They're creating a villain, right? So what do they do? What do the power people do? The first thing they do is create fear, create a villain. Those go hand in hand. Then they create a division between those who support the bad guys and those who are good guys because they support reform. They support recovery, the recovery effort. They support ending the terror, right? So if you choose the wrong side, you're now ostracized, just like we saw with 9/11. And I think it's important that we understand, I don't know if we've seen a narrative, even though it's the same kind of narrative. They change the villain, they change the backstory, but it's just a new episode. It's just a new episode of the same soap opera, and we keep falling for it. And how do they make us fall for it? Each time they do this, right? They pick a fear narrative, they get it going, they get it fired up, they make a villain. Then there's those who oppose the narrative, and they're the bad guys. They support everything collapsing. They don't support people's lives. They don't support freedom. They don't support safety, etc., right? You've seen the pattern. And then they use that to divide faction against faction, to violate people's rights, to take more freedoms. And so we see that all across the world. And I don't know if we've seen it globalized, one narrative globalized on this level before. And that's what kind of blows me away about this past few years with what's going on. Whatever you believe about the individual situation and how you want to care for yourself, because that's a right. And this is what it comes down to right now that I think people are angry about, and we're seeing more anger across the world growing over the past couple of years as people start to realize what's going on. If you want to take action for your health, then do so. But no one, least of all a politician, has the right to tell you that you have to be healthy this way, that you have to buy this thing from their corporate friends, that's the only way you can be safe. But realize it's the same narrative. The only way we can be safe is by supporting these soldiers invading the countries, bombing, killing, raping, pillaging, but only show the good stuff. Oh no, censor anything that paints them in a bad light. The uniforms protect us. The police protect us. They are the thin line between order and chaos. The system, the medical system, the corporation. Ultimately, it's the machine that is selling itself as the thin line between order and chaos, between life and death, between fear and peace. You see that? And that's what we have to know. I don't even need to go into the specifics because you already know the censorship. You already know what's going on. But look at these things that are happening. Now, GoFundMe, coming back to my original point, these Canadians up there protesting, resist the scumbag politicians in their uniforms with their fascism, whatever that fascism might be. And look what they did, right? They raised like $10 million. GoFundMe at first released like $1 million, and then they said, no, the police asked us. They said this isn't peaceful. They said they don't like it. So the politicians came to the corporates. They're all in bed together. They said no. But get this, instead of saying we're going to refund the money, they were going to steal $9 million. What happens if you or I do a fundraiser and then we abscond with the money and use it somewhere else for $9 million? So they were like, oh, well, anybody that doesn't, if you put out the effort to request a refund in the next little bit of time, we'll give you one. Otherwise, we're giving this money to legitimate charities. And what happened, I think it was today, even politicians were calling GoFundMe out for fraud. And GoFundMe's backtracked to be like, no, we're refunding everything. And I think there's already new fundraisers and things like that going. Guys, you don't use GoFundMe. That's rule number one. If you got something that's going to be big, that's going to be legit, that's anything. If your event is not anything that just goes with the flow, you don't use GoFundMe. Or don't use them at all. Better just don't use them at all. Let them go bankrupt. Because these guys are scammers. These guys are thieves. They're just like your politicians. They're just like the shills. They're selling you the fear, the narrative, the solution, and dividing us against each other, faction against faction. Because they know if we don't unite, right? We disagree with that faction. We disagree with this group. The blacks, with the whites, with the Mexicans, with the natives. We all have something that we don't agree on. And so what they do is they use the leverage. Leverage is a powerful tool. They use the leverage to always divide the factions against each other, because they know if the factions and the protesters from the different factions unite against them, they're screwed. So they have to keep us fighting against each other. And that's the key linchpin in the war on reason and the war on truth. I think you guys know that, but I just kind of was thinking about it, wanted to talk about it a little bit, about what's going on as people are trying to resist up north. And it's good to see resistance to blue ISIS in whatever part of the world it is, and to these scumbags that call themselves authorities, that call themselves leaders, that call themselves protectors. The only protectors are the people protecting human rights for all equally. So go out there, do that, love your neighbor as yourselves, be peace. And I'm going to go for now. I was just out running a few errands, and I thought I'd shout out to you guys. We'll catch you soon.